Hey folks, it is Napalm Dawn here on G4G. We're on YouTube and we're talking about Marvel Avengers Alliance. And this is going to be a little bit of a precursor to Beta 6. Now the footage that you're going to see in this video is from Beta 5.6. It is an internal tester build only. The general public does not have access to this release. The last release will be down in the comments below, and that is Beta 5.21. Now, of course, I will get into the standard disclaimers before we get into the video. No, there will not be a mobile version. No, I do not know when Beta 6 is coming out. No, I will not give, nor do I know, the full-on value of a percentage complete that Beta 6 is. I cannot tell you if it is 50% complete or 99% complete. I don't have that knowledge. No, I do not have a rough estimate of when it will be out. I can only echo the sentiment that the team has hoped it will be out in Q1. I've seen somebody ask what Q1 is the other day, and my brain just exploded on that. That makes me really sad. Q1 is the first quarter of the year. Obviously, a year is 12 months. If you quarterize it, it's 3 months. That means January, February, March. That is the, not goal, but that is the hope that it will be out in Q1. There have been a lot of repeat questions on YouTube lately that are all just simply answered by watching the videos and paying attention. And frankly, it's getting really, really annoying to get asked questions that the videos actually answer. That is the whole point of these videos, is to answer questions before they are asked. So ignoring the video and just asking questions means that I am wasting time recording these videos. Do not waste my time asking questions that are answered by the videos. And I think the biggest one lately is like, what is the ETA and everything? Right now, there is no ETA. As I said, there is only a hope, and that is the hope is that it is going to be in Q1. Now, as you can see from the title of this video, we are going to be talking about tips and tricks to start your Beta 6 experience when it drops. Now, Beta 6 is going to have a grand reset. Everybody, including myself, is going to be reset back to a day one style person. It is going to essentially emulate if somewhere back in 2012 you started playing Marvel Avengers Alliance. Now, before we get into the tips and tricks, some of the features that you should know about for Beta 6 is that there will be the PvAI practice in there, so you will be doing PvP. One of the major reasons for that is several Spec Ops actually have PvP related tasks, and we will talk about that when we get into the tips and tricks. So you would not be able to pass through a Spec Ops if you were not able to do at least some form of PvP. That is one of the major reasons why it will be available in Beta 6. You will also have access to several Spec Ops, and they will be Spec Ops 1 through 11. You will be able to play them when you get your hands on Beta 6. Yes, you can play them in any order, and yes, you can play them as drop in, drop out, meaning you can get to a certain point in the Spec Ops, stop that Spec Ops, go on to another one, play that one, and then come back to your original, and your progress will be saved. Here is a prime example. In Spec Ops 3, the Avengers vs. X-Men Spec Ops, I'm having a problem defeating Captain America for this task. The fight is bugged and does not launch properly for me. The team has already addressed this one internally and fixed it, so it will be ready for Beta 6. However, for me and the build that I have, as you can see here, I was not able to earn magic, and I'm a few tasks short. That is because this Captain America fight is bugged. So I abandoned this Spec Ops and I moved on to another one. If I was to come back to Spec Ops 3 by hitting the launch button, I would resume 7/8, 6/8, 5/8 of the way through here based on this bar, and I would have just a few more tasks before earning magic. So that is one of the features that you will see when you get your hands on Beta 6. You will be able to do several PvP seasons, you will be able to do several Spec Ops, and you will, through tasks, and more on this in a moment, be able to earn general release heroes like Scarlet Witch and Black Panther through the special task unlock system. And, characters like Rogue, Emma comes from a Spec Ops. That's why you see her lock. Same for Magic. But some of the general release ones will actually come from hitting certain milestones within the game. Okay. So, here are Napalm's tips and tricks for Beta 6, and this would also count for the final version. Basically, this is a tip and a trick video for anybody who is going to be starting at Square Zero, and it's really everybody, when they start at Square Zero when Beta 6 drops, or any future version, and you're brand new to the game. Tip number 1, know your tubs. So from the rest of the video, the abbreviation or the acronym TUB refers to Team Up Bonus. And I want to give an example of that. Here is the new wiki. There is a wiki that has been produced by the Redux team. The team would prefer you use it for all things going forward. However, at certain times, there is a value for me to go back to the old one, as it has some things available in the older one that are just easier to deal with. However, if you take a look at the newer one, so here's the old one, the team up bonus only goes to 450, but the newer one, because the team has written new bonuses, goes up to 750. And we can scroll past his formerly biggest team up, which was him and J-Thor. We can now, well, okay, all right, so it says 700 because of the template, but over here, you will notice that the highest team up for Thor in the original game is 350 for Jane Foster, including Ambassador for Mankind, Hammer Bros, Keep It Secret, etc., etc. But here, Jane is coming in as a 500 bonus. So when I say know your tubs, we will use Hulk as an example, okay? The better your team up bonus when combat concludes, the more points that you score. Let's say you have 15 minutes that you are dedicating to playing a specific mission here in Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux. Say you want to get up to 3 stars on this Loki mission. You start challenge mode. You're like, okay, who am I going to bring with me to this? And you say, I'm going to bring Hulk and I'm going to bring Thor. Well, that means every combat in which both of them are alive, you are getting this amount of team up bonuses right here. So that means you're scoring big. The bigger you score in your combat mission, the more effective your farming or your mission playing will actually be. If you were to, let's say, take 10 combats, you get 10 points of combat, you've earned 100 just to do a mission. Well, what if instead of 10 points per combat, you were earning 50 points per combat? You were doing 10 combats. Now you're up at 500 in 15 minutes instead of 100. It's more effective. It means you go through the points and the star system much, much faster. And there's a reason for that, because stars are going to come into play a little bit later in this video. But know your tubs. Know which tubs you have access to and are some of the best. Really high-powered tubs would be things like Iron Man and Doctor Strange, Black Widow and Hawkeye, Cyclops and Jean, Emma when you earn her and Jean, and like some of the Fantastic Four, Hulk and Thor, as we pointed out, is very high. Iron Fist and Luke Cage get kind of high because of like Defenders and Heroes for Hire. Generally, mutants combined will give relatively good tubs. People in the same universe, like here, you get the Spider-Verse going on with Spider-Man, Spider-Woman. The Hulks combined, She-Hulk and regular Hulk, is fairly high. Storm and Thor have some good ones. Storm and Black Panther. I would imagine Wolverine and Jean or Wolverine and Scott have some good ones. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch and Magneto because of the family relationship, etc., etc. So know your tubs, know which ones are strong, and try to favor those for the mission if you can. Now, do not cripple your combat capabilities by bringing in a high-powered tub. And let's say you're bringing in 2 blasters and you're going up against a whole bunch of tacticians that could be potentially deadly. So try to strike an even balance between a good tub and good combat. Next up, get prepared to make the agent a tank. You should at least have some kind of a plan in mind to make the agent a tank when you need him or her to be. Now, eventually, you will have EISOs that help you do this, but they will not be available until Season 2. You can run gear that brings attacks to your agent, like the Hoarfrost Mace, the Blade of the Guardian. There's not a lot you can necessarily farm in the beginning parts of the game. However, there are some things like the Knight, which do actually do that. And now, damn, I forget what I actually had there because I didn't mean to do that. There is certain gear that you have accessible. The Knight comes from one of the first 2 Spec Ops. I believe it is actually the second Spec Ops. It's the chest set and everything. Just be prepared to do that, as your agent is potentially capable of being one of the best tanks and protectors in the game. And if you are leveling brand new characters that you just unlocked, or you have infiltrators with you and you're facing a lot of scrappers, however, your agent is, let's say, a bruiser, and you can bring the attacks to you and you can withstand them, that is a good tip for you right there, is be prepared to have the agent be the sacrifice, be the one who can sit there and say, I can do this all day, and actually take the hits. It's handy and it's very protective of sometimes your fledgling characters. You should also get a good amount of suits available. Now, you're going to see some high-powered suits in here. That's because they're available in 5.2. You're not going to see some of these in 6. You're not going to see a lot of these in 6. You're not going to see the flight suit, or this infiltrator one, or the vortex suits that provide bonuses to the rest of the team. So you can provide a scrapper bonus to the team or an infiltrator one. You're going to see the ones like this one with the bandolier across the chest and the glow and everything. Your agent is the most versatile thing on your roster, aside from very few tunes like Captain Marvel and Captain America. Your agent is capable of being anything, doing anything that you need it to do. So getting a good smattering of suits, especially on, is one of the most helpful things that you can do. If you have your agent tanking, you always want to make sure that your agent is at least capable of not being the kind of class that you see out on the battlefield in spades. If you're a tactician on the agent and you're doing the protecting and there's just a whole lot of infiltrators out there, you might, of course, want to rethink that. But if you're a bruiser and there's a whole bunch of scrappers and you have a good bruiser suit, well, yeah, then you know what? Absolutely go to town. So get a variety of suits. And one of the things that I think can best be recommended for that is to have at least a decent generalist suit in there. If you're looking at combat and you're really kind of unsure because there is such a variety of classes that you're fighting in the combat, you know what? Bring a generalist suit. If you're not going to be able to get a good counter class out there out of your agent, don't be afraid to do a cop out and bring a generalist suit. Moving on, abuse good debuffs like flanked. So early on, you do have access to one of the best debuffs in the game, and that is Cyclops. Cyclops in his default suit can not only do flanked, but he can do disabled. That means he can set up the enemy team for extra damage through flanked, and he can turn off classes at 95, 99% power by disadvantage. Is it as good as generalized? No. But it takes a little bit before the agent and your team can start getting generalized. To me, one of the best, most consistent ones that you can get access to will eventually be Constrictor through the lockbox system. Constrictor's level 1 is the generalized. He responds with it if he's doing a follow-up. He responds with it if he's doing a counter. So, he's good, but it takes a bit to get there. In the very beginning, the best thing you can do is get Cyclops. His level 6 gives everybody what the Neurotrope gives in terms of free counters. You get flanked, which turns everybody into scrappers, basically, and you have disadvantage, which is crucial in turning off a infiltrator when you have a tactician on the field, or even better, turning off a scrapper when you have an infiltrator on the field, as a scrapper could potentially maul the hell out of your infiltrator, especially if the infiltrator has not gone into stealth mode. So get good debuffs like Cyclops early on because of things like disadvantage and flanked. Aside from something like that, one of the easiest teams you can build in the early days is a bleed team. A lot of vanilla gear in Chapter 1 is capable of bleeding. You've got Wolverine who can put it out. You've got a few characters who can put it out. You have a few characters who like bleeds, like, for example, Black Panther and Wolverine. And your agent is pretty capable of adding to bleed teams with things like Ravaged and Tenderized for slashing attacks. Bleeding is a very, very easy debuff to build a team around, and it will carry you through a lot of the early game content. Eventually, you can start getting into higher concepts like pressure points and opportunists and begin exploiting them, or other dot debuffs out there and exploit those, the attrition debuff category and everything. But burning, bleeding are the easiest two to begin with at the start of the game. Slightly more advanced after that would be electrical based teams running off of things like Static Charge, Crackle, which gets added later in the game. Crackle comes in, but you can still do electrical attacks and Static Charge, and that's where Thor and Storm come in, and the agent can start farming some of those hammers. However, electrical-based teams are a little bit of a higher concept, so I would say Bleed is one of the best hit point reducing debuffs to go with early in the game. Moving on from that, you should look at getting good weapons as early as you possibly can. When Beta 6 drops, cheat mode will be off, which means you have to go through the missions in a linear fashion. That means Chapter 1, Mission 1, Mission 2, Mission 3. You're going to have to go through and do everything the way that you did back when the game was live on Facebook, the way the Marvel gods intended. When a cheat mode is on, you can skip around a little bit. Because things are linear, it is going to be tough to get some of the super heavy hitters that the game has available, like, for example, the Goblin Glider, the custom possessed pistol, the custom only for killing. You can't hop around like Mario on, mushroom crack over here and target specific weapons. You're going to have to earn your way up there. However, the daily spinners are a good way to potentially get good gear. For example, here's a piece of Ken gear because of Spec Ops that I'm on. If you get lucky and get good gear or gold access relatively early on, a few things open up for you. Good early gear that I would recommend that really helps your agent contribute to combat would be things like the rocket pistol, the Coulson's Revenge, eventually farming your way up to the Goblin Glider, eventually getting the, I'm going to call it the Kupopi, which is the custom possessed pistol, the Kupopi, or the Kofik, the custom only for killing. The Magneto shield is good. Momentum generator. The Power of 4, as we all know, is a real classic piece of gear, and you can get to it relatively early. Now, I cannot showcase the Power of 4 right now, even though I have it on this particular save. The problem with that is that the Power 4 isn't functioning right now. The Power 4 was popular in the day because it would eventually kill the agent when he or she takes all 4 turns. That means you could sandbag your agent level, but level your heroes. They gain the experience. Your agent doesn't. That means you continue to fight lower level people in PvP. Well, that is no longer a thing. Sandbagging would do nothing but harm you within Redux because that's not going to be the way PvP works. However, if you can guarantee that you can end combat while the Power of 4 is live and get out of combat before your agent dies, the Power of 4 with certain gear could probably be extremely handy. The Power of 4 with the Bishop means you'll basically have infinite stamina. You're not going to run out of stamina if you keep firing the Bishop because it'll return stamina to you. If you have another piece of good gear, the custom battery cannon, which hits like an absolute tank, it is farmable relatively early in your leveling process. If you combine the Power of 4 with that, you have a gun with no cooldown that you can keep firing, keep doing massive damage. And if you can get out of combat on the second or the third turn of your agent, then maybe the Power of 4 is pretty good. Do know that if you have all 4 attacks, your agent is going to die and then will not get experience. Can probably cheese some things with the phylactery there, but if you're going to get the Power 4, know what you're getting into. It is a risk-reward scenario there. As I said earlier, you can drop in and out of Spec Ops and do them effectively. That means if you are doing a particular Spec Ops and you lack a character that Spec Ops needs, for example, if I was going through the Spec Ops over here and on this particular Spec Ops, this one right here, Long Live the Queen, the one to get Emma, you need to have Scarlet Witch to pop Mystique in this Juggernaut mission over here. If you don't have Scarlet Witch unlocked, you can get all the way through this Spec Ops, get all this gear, get access to the EMP grenades, and be like, okay, I don't have Scarlet Witch right now. I'm going to put in a pin in this Spec Ops, and I'm going to go on to the next one. I've always really liked magic. Let me see if I can get magic. Do this effectively. If there is really, really good gear from a Spec Ops that you love, for example, this Ghost Rider one gives you the signpost. Maybe you have an amazing plan set out for yourself and you really, really want that signpost. Well, fine. Go ahead and go through that Spec Ops until you earn it. And then if you want to, abandon it and go on to another one. Say, okay, I have the signpost, but now I really want this Hoarfrost mace so that my agent can tank. Well, okay, do that. Just be effective in your bouncing around in the Spec Ops. And that brings me to another point. Use the wikis effectively. When you start doing a Spec Ops on the wiki, go to missions, go to the Spec Ops, and find out how the Spec Ops plays out. I'm using the old wiki here for a reason. It's just a little bit quicker. For example, here we are, the All Hallows Spec Ops. It's the one where you recruit Ghost Rider. It is the one that I just finished. If you're like, okay, I really love Ghost Rider, huge Ghost Rider fan, I want to unlock him. Pull it up, go to the list of tasks, and see what you have to do. Plan things accordingly. The worst thing you want to do is maybe need somebody for a deploy, but they're on a one-day training. And you're not really able to play in that 24 hours, so you're not able to reduce the timer. Or you're doing a really, really long research, but then you come up with a task like this one where you have to research the Infernal Fang, and this one takes 8 hours, but you're researching something that takes 24. Be super careful when you get into the Spec Ops and make sure you have some training bays available and you have some research bays available so that you can do what you need to get through the Spec Ops. If you come down to this section, you can find out who you need for the deploys. So in this one, you need to have Doctor Strange and Mr. Fantastic. Here, you need Quicksilver, Hercules, Gambit, Daredevil in order to get the epic boss, Dormammu. So if you don't have these 4 heroes, you're not going to be able to defeat Dormammu. That is a problem because there is a task to defeat Dormammu in order to get through the Spec Ops. So plan things accordingly. If you have not recruited one of these 4, then maybe this is not the Spec Ops for you. However, maybe you really like the Sinister Scepter, so you go in there and you play the Spec Ops and you get the Sinister Scepter to drop, and you're like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to go and do something else, or the Binding Contract. So use your tools to your advantage as much as you possibly can. Use the new wiki, use the old wiki, plan things accordingly. Don't waste your time by needing to research something, but you already have a 20-hour research going. Plan ahead, plan effectively. Don't shy away from getting a good PvP team ready. The reason being, as you can see here in the tasks, ones like any of the ones that have like this star and stuff like that may require you to go in. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry, it's the cross swords. Win a PvP battle. Now, some of them are just simply like play 3, but some of them are a win. So if you're a type of person who just wants to ignore PvP and doesn't really care about the PvP heroes, which is kind of freaky to me because you get heroes like Deadpool and everything, you need to have a functional PvP team that at least can get you a win, because that will be some of the tasks. So you cannot ignore PvP. have in mind a good PvP team that you think can win a battle. Do you have to set a defensive team? No, you will never have to set a defensive team in Beta 6 or going forward because nobody is attacking your defense. It's all you going on offense and needing to get a certain amount of wins per season to go up in the ranks from silver to gold to diamond, etc., etc. Manage your roster and make it get varied. This is a very, very good tip. Make sure your roster is very varied and you have toons that can do double duty. Now, what I mean by that is, for example, Cyclops. Cyclops, we talked about him having some really good debuff capabilities and everything like that, but maybe he is a deploy in a mission where you want a piece of gear from it, or an epic boss spawns there and he's a required deploy. So when your resources are a little tight in the beginning of the game, don't just always make a decision based on who you think is fun and powerful, like Wolverine. Like, oh, everybody loves Wolverine, let's unlock Wolverine, or the Hulk. Unlock people that will help you not only progress in combat, but progress through the missions. We have a Hulk premium mission here in Season 1. Here in the Pulse, for example, you need to have Hulk to do this mission and fight Abomination. So when you are unlocking characters, you may want to consider, well, I really want to do this Abomination mission. I will make my next unlock be the Hulk. So he's fun in combat, but he also does things for the story missions and everything like that. So consider beefing up your roster in a way that people do double duty. They help you in combat, but then they also help you outside of combat. Maybe skip Spec Ops 1. That's another tip that I can give you guys. Spec Ops 1, as you know, is a very unique individual. It is the only one that forced you into getting 15 stars, 5 stars for 3 missions. None of the other Spec Ops worked that way. They had you go through the 24, 25 tasks. I think it is for every Spec Ops. Let me get that exact number. We have, so roughly 25 tasks. If you've played 5.2, you've probably gone through and already unlocked Mockingbird by 5-starring everything. It's fresh in your brain. The gear is okay. Mockingbird is okay. If you want to have fun, maybe honestly just skip Spec Ops 1 and come back to it at some other point in time. You've already done it. You're probably tired of just barely eking out the win on hammerhead fights and everything like that. And plus, it is a grind. That first Spec Ops is a heavy, heavy grind. Maybe just don't do Spec Ops 1 because you've done it already. Slow down. Don't consume everything all at once. This is big. And this goes into what I'm saying with Spec Ops 1. We don't know when the next version after Beta 6 will drop. We don't know if it'll be the final version, if there'll be a Beta 7, a Beta 6.6, a Beta 6.1 with a minor patch. None of that is set in any kind of stone. So, you may be sitting with Beta 6 for a while. You have a ton of content. You have Spec Ops, you have PvPs, you have all of Season 1 available. That means you can eventually get into that fight in Chapter 12. You know, the boss rush gauntlet and everything like that. And farm things there. You have the world at your fingertips prior to Season 2. And that will be with you for a very, very long time. It's not going anywhere. So, pace yourself and don't try to do 50 million things on day 1, day 2, week 1, month 1. Chill out, go through the content properly, and enjoy it while you're doing it. Two battles. All right, I'll have to do the mini bosses separate. It's gonna be here for a while. There's no rush. What you can do is play through the content that really interests you first at a pace that you like. When you start getting all of the fun content done, maybe that is when you can go back and do some of the more tedious, boring ones, like, say, Spec Ops 1 again. Use those when you're in a sort of content drought. That's where content you don't like perhaps could be best served. When you've beaten everything into the ground for the stuff you really want to do and the stuff you really like, maybe then go back and do the stuff you don't like. It won't be that boring because, it's what's there. It's one of the only things you have left to do. So slow down, drive around the curve cautiously, and don't go speeding off a cliff at 90 miles an hour. Another tip, this is not your father's Marvel Avengers Alliance. And by that, let me explain. This is the code base that existed in 2016 when the game died. Lots of changes happened between 2012, March of 2012, February of 2012, and September 30th of 2016. Not everybody in 2012 was as weak as they were when the game ended in 2016. A lot of them got better. So if you're thinking, oh man, I can't wait to put She-Hulk and Luke Cage on the helicarrier jets like I used to, blah, blah, blah. Remember, not because of uniforms, not because of the worthy or anything, those characters got buffs along the way. So She-Hulk plays a lot better than she did in 2012. Luke Cage plays a lot better than he did in 2012. Don't just automatically assume everybody that was garbage in the beginning of the game is still garbage. Not only is the Redux team working on their own changes, which they're not really doing that many buffs and nerfs. They will be nerfing some of the super high powered people like Warlock and White Tiger and everything. But from the changes that Playdom did to the changes that the Redux team has planned, this is not your daddy's antiquated Marvel Avengers Alliance. Be open to learning about the early characters all over again. You kind of forget how good Hawkeye is in his heroic age uniform, because who was really using Hawkeye at the end of the game? Who was using stock Luke Cage or She-Hulk when they had their worthy uniforms available and everything? So keep that in mind, that you're going to have to relearn, some of these tunes, and some of them are going to be better than you remember. Hit your unlock tasks. So by that, I mean, there are now going to be certain tasks built into Redux that will give you the general release heroes. People have said, okay, I know I can get heroes from lockboxes and Spec Ops and PvP, but what about the general release people, Black Panther, Scarlet Witch? How do I get them? Well, in order to get them, you will need to hit certain unlock tasks, and I will very quickly give you an example of that as a screenshot. This is an example of an unlock task. To unlock Chapter 7 and to recruit Black Panther, you need to have 10 heroes recruited, get a 1-star mastery in Chapter 6, Mission 5, and get a total of 67 story masteries. Now, what that means is that a cumulative score of going through Season 1, a 1-star here, a 2-star here, a 3-star here, back to a 1-star, all of those stars add up. And to complete that task, you need to have a total of 67. If you meet all of those requirements, you unlock Black Panther. There are other requirements hidden in the game along the way, simply by completing a mission or completing a massive task like that, that will allow you to recruit the general release characters. So, don't get lost in Spec Ops and ignore Season 1 content. If you do that, you're going to hurt yourself in the long run because, like Scarlet Witch, to pop Mystique, to finish off that Spec Ops, you will lack the characters to complete the Spec Ops, which means you will never earn the Spec Ops hero. So, don't skimp on the Chapter 1 content, the Season 1 content out there, and they will help you hit your unlock tasks. Very, very crucial. Farm classic and good gear, just like you did back in the day in 2012, early 2013. That gear is going to be super handy. We talked about that. Things like the Magneto Shield, the momentum generator for unarmed people, the glider, the Kupopi, the Kofik, etc., etc. When they become available to you by going through the season linearly, start farming them. I wouldn't waste too much gold on respinning, but if you're an impatient person and you have the gold, feel free to go ahead and respin. You know, you see the gliders there on the spinner, spin until you get it, and then you never have to go into that particular mission ever again. So we've pretty much talked about a couple in a row that are all sort of tied to each other. We've talked about using disadvantage and generalized effectively. Generalized is a little bit of a harder debuff to come by earlier on. Use disadvantage. Talked about a solid bleed team. One of the final things that I'm going to leave you with is have a good inventory. And by that, I mean start saving up some of your resources, not just to get heroes, but to also go ahead and get items in the store that can make or break combat. That would be things like the restoration packs, things that can remove debuffs from you, like the Panacea injector, or things that can remove bleeding, because that's such a common debuff in the hero. Holy shit, that glider just deleted Boomerang. My god. Yeah, have things that can get bleeds off of your team, have things that can heal your team, give you stamina back. Be prepared for that. And I'm going to keep rolling until I get the soldering iron, just to have it. I may actually have one already on this save, but it is handy up against mechanical foes like the Sentinels and everything. Other than that, the soldering iron is not a piece of good gear. If I was playing with limited resources, there's no real way I think I would ever spin that many times to get the soldering iron, but I just wanted to pick these up, and I'll show you what I mean by the store. So when you go into the store, which is functional, you want to have certain things here offensively too. The Crippler is extremely good on offense, so is the Immobilizer. Chaotic Grenade is very, very strong. Defensively speaking, the Zap is amazing. The Zap can turn Black Widow into somebody that even the Hulk is going to go, God damn, what's up with this? Zap is a very, very, very good utility to get past an extremely hard fight or a boss fight. So you want to have some zaps. You're going to want to have some of these restoration packs that do health and stamina. Phoenix Essence is pretty good, but it also gives health to the enemy team. You will be dealing with seasonal items around Halloween. You'll be getting the candies. Right now we're getting the Valentine's cards. And around Christmas, you get a lot of good food that is really helpful in combat. So do your research when you're not working on Spec Ops research so that you can increase the things that you can buy in the store and use them effectively in combat. Also, visit your allies and collect their distress calls because they are pretty handy and they don't consume a turn. Going into your inventory using an inventory item does consume a character's turn, but calling for a distress call does not. And sometimes you might pull in somebody who does a really good job for you. So, and also in some of the Spec Ops, you have a task to pick up distress calls from your allies. If you're full, you have to make sure you do a few combats, use the distress calls, and then pick them up from your allies. So there you go, folks. There are some tips and tricks from me to you to help you get started in Beta 6 when it drops, and some things that can make your overall Redux experience a little bit better in the beginning parts of the game. Now, old guides and old tips and tricks are gonna become valid and new again. I did a lot of videos for Wrath of the Lich King when it came out in World of Warcraft because they went around and did World of Warcraft Classic and brought Wrath back. A lot of those old videos all of a sudden saw a spike in popularity and hits because it was relevant again. The same is true for like old CJ Edwards and Inhuman Beatdown content and Kingfisher 745, some of my old content and everything. A lot of those older videos are now going to become fresh again because you're going to be doing that Spec Ops, or you're going to be fighting around that time of that PvP season and everything. So use your resources effectively. Come visit us on Facebook. Come visit us in Discord. And we can certainly help you out from there. Hope you enjoyed the video. I know it is long, but I tried to give you guys a lot of good tips there. And plus, you got to see Ghost Rider in action and Satana in action, which you guys probably haven't seen for many years now. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Give a like and subscribe if it was a good video for you. It's Napalm Dawn signing off.